Everybody, welcome to Digging Up Dillinger on this special episode on the anniversary, the 90-year anniversary of John Dillinger's supposed death.
Yeah.
Welcome, what's up, everybody? Travis Thompson, Todd Hiles, Stuart Fillmore. The gang is here on a day. We pushed yesterday's recording to today, and it just didn't click with all of us until today that this is actually the day
The anniversary.
for a very long time. I mean, 90
It-
years today.
Yes, it was a weird chain of events that caused us to push this, but it ends up being really a very cool coincidence.
Yep.
Stuart
and,
likes today because he likes to say it's been 90 years that his agency was created today. This was put on the map. This shooting was put them on the map.
The
That's
FBI
G-man
brand,
in the world.
Yeah, the FBI brand was born 90 years ago today.
Isn't that great? That's such a cool thing that we're together. We got blood of John Dillinger with the FBI 90 years later, and we're still chasing the same freaking answer. Please help us. Please help us.
Yes.
I would also say that what time? Do you guys remember what time he was shot and killed? Do we know what the official?
I think it was around 10:30.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
10:30 Central Time.
Because Chicago's Central Time. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so we're about 45 minutes away. You know what? At this point, I don't even have to look. I'm pretty sure our timer will end on the exact moment because that is exactly where we're at today.
That's how things seem to work in this case.
This is
on the exact moment the imposter was killed.
The imposter. We have a lot going on. And in fact, this episode is being recorded, and I'm going to release it today because I think it's that special that we're together. And I think our listeners who love John Dillinger, I've seen some posts on Facebook. I've seen some posts on Instagram. A couple of guys have said, one person I saw said nothing was going on at the Biograph today or tonight, but that person went and lit a candle. I saw that at one of the groups that we follow in the alley for John Dillinger. Yeah. It's just an interesting part of our American history, right? And that I think that's what the legacy is to this day, is remembering this enigmatic figure that lived. And we talk about it. You guys listen about us talk about it all day and why he's interesting. But there's a lot to it. And I think today it's just something we've been talking about for a long time. Now it's officially 90 years. We're 10 years away from it being 100 years old. We're running out of time to tell this story and to figure this out. So we're glad you're here with us.
Absolutely. Yes. Very significant.
Hey, before we jump into it,
please
just have Travis mention what's behind his head.
Yeah, Travis.
So right behind my head is the wooden gun that was given to my great-grandfather by John in April of 1934 when he was at the farmhouse. And I'll move my head so y'all can get a good look of it. But that is the one that we believe is the real one. And then it was sold in auction in Texas.
Was it a piece of wood that was chipped off like the bench, or was it some other piece of? Where did that piece of wood come from?
Came from the top of a washboard in the jail.
And he, chopped it off basically, and then started whittling it away.
Whittling it and used shoe shine to get the black on it.
Shoe shine was just readily available in any kind of prison.
Well, I'm guessing back then, yeah.
Yeah. I still think that's interesting. We have some good stuff too. So Travis, that's awesome. Artifacts will come into play for this podcast soon as well. We have a lot of updates for our perspective on what we're working on for the podcast. There's a couple of things that we're working on. One, the town of Mooresville is hosting an event to celebrate their history. Is it, Travis explained, it's a 100-year anniversary of Mooresville?
No, 200 years.
200 years.
Wow.
Yes.
Okay.
200 years, and me and my father and Joe will be at the Mooresville Library on August 3rd. I think it starts at 3:00. I'm not 100% sure.
Yep. So only a couple of weeks away. So if you're listening and you want to come out, we're going to be there talking. And you guys can ask us a bunch of questions. And, we're not even the real stars. Mike is really the star.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he's
Definitely.
got the personality. He's the one. You guys don't even know him yet, but we're getting there. We'll get him on eventually. He's got so much stuff going on. We want to make sure he has at least a couple episodes to be with us. But so we're doing that. We've had a couple conversations. We're not holding our breath, but we have had a couple conversations with some of the production companies out of a couple of major networks. We'll leave that for what it is. We've gone through that route before. We go ahead. We can have conversations all day, right, Stuart?
That's exactly right. We've all learned not to hold our breath on these things because you'll most likely suffocate.
Yep. That's why we have brought it to the people, because nothing has panned out, and we decided to say this story belongs to everybody and it needs to get out there. So that's why we are here, and we appreciate you guys joining us.
Exactly.
Yeah, thanks.
Well said, Travis.
We have, speaking of our viewers, that's what this episode's about. So not only is it the anniversary of his death, alleged, but we also have been getting a ton of comments and emails and specifically questions from viewers that we want to answer right now, that we think that the guys have not seen these questions. I'm the only one who gets these emails. Big surprise. They don't go to all four of us. I usually forward them on to the team. So if you're sending emails, don't worry. We see them, we read them, and I forward them on to the team. And we read through them and we see if there's any nuggets that can help us. And I tell you what, there's been a ton. We've talked to one lady on the phone, Amy, about her grandfather who was a bootlegger and a car guy they called a wheels man. That's what she said. He was a wheels man. He was a car dealer. And she was her grandfather had connections to the Tui gang. So we talked to her on the phone. Travis and I did. She sent us a bunch of emails. So we're going to go over some questions. Are you guys ready? You are under oath, and you will. I know how well you do under oath, Todd, at the Secret Service. Okay.
Yeah.
And the FBI.
Enough said there. Enough said.
Yeah, enough said. No, you guys haven't seen these, right? You haven't seen these questions.
No, we have not.
No.
Nope.
Okay. Do you guys want me to share them so you can read while I'm doing it? While I'm reading it out loud?
Yeah, that'll work. Sure.
I guess as long as it doesn't have people's information on it.
Yeah, no, I took all the information out.
Okay.
So we'll do the first name, last initial. So speaking of Amy, that's going to be the first question is from Amy. Okay. So Amy, again, Kentucky. Hold on. Let's see. I'm trying to get, here it is. Let's see. Let me know if you guys can see this. Yep. Okay.
Yep. Got it.
Okay. So Amy E messaged us, and this is a long one, so stay with us. Okay. There's some nuggets in here. This is the kind of stuff that I think you all would be interested in. What about pharmacies as hideout / a home base? They were frequently used as a network to bootleggers at the time. George Remus owned an entire network of drugstores and soda shops. Maybe a Capone Remus Dillinger connection? ? Have the hideout addresses been cross-referenced to the city directories at the time? In the back of some older city directories, it lists street addresses and then the residents' names, like an index for streets. Might be a fast way to see who was in the neighborhood. In my case, the bootleggers always had multiple houses in the same area to hide. By the way, Amy, like I mentioned, is the one investigating the Tui gang and her grandfather being the bootlegger. Continuing here. In our talk before, you said Dillinger picked up a car in Lexington, Kentucky. Ike Costner, major bootlegger from Eastern Tennessee, frequented that area. He was associated with the Tui gang and later Capone. Costner and the Tui gang from Chicago pulled the Charlotte, North Carolina mail truck robbery in November of 1933. They hid out at the Rose and East High Street. Also, connections to Dunn Pharmacy as well. There were also a car salesman, Alex C. Ray, that was caught in one of the Costner liquor chases. Can you tell me more about the car they got in Lexington and what were they doing there? My grandfather was a transporter bootlegger back in those times. He was also a used car salesman and provided cars to bootleggers. He escaped the chain gang twice and it ended up in Lexington with associates of Costner. He did say he was robbed of his new watch by the Dillinger gang on the way to the World's Fair in Chicago in a bar. No info for the year or location. The circles that he ran in probably overlapped with Dillinger and the movie Thunder Road, but that's a whole nother story. Asheville, North Carolina, Newport, Tennessee, Lexington, Kentucky, and up to Cleveland, Ohio. Was anyone in the Dillinger gang in Leavenworth, Atlanta, Penn? I'm assuming she means penitentiary.
Yes.
And then did Dillinger have specific liquor he drank? I cannot find an article video of Costner's daughter specifically said his father supplied Dillinger with liquor. And that is why I think there may be a connection to all of this. I apologize for so many questions. I have been researching for a year and a half, and amazing to hear other digging into the era. Keep up the good work, Amy.
Wow.
E.
Man, that's good work, Amy.
That's incredible.
That's some very detailed work. Very impressive.
Hey, before we get into our answers, let me just ask Stuart a quick question. In the FBI file, was there ever talk of Dillinger and Capone together?
Not specifically of Dillinger and Capone, but there was when she mentions Lexington, Kentucky. I'm going off the top of my head, but I do remember seeing reports about Dillinger in Kentucky. I think maybe a stolen car, exactly as she's referencing. I just don't remember the exact details of it. So she's definitely on to something there.
Yes.
Great.
And Capone was in the Atlanta pen, right?
Yes, he was
Before
in Atlanta
Alcatraz.
before they moved into Alcatraz. Yes.
Right.
So what is your thought? What are the first things that pop out here? I mean, I know the first question is really a pharmacy or using a pharmacy as a hideout or a base.
Yeah, so using the pharmacy as kind of a meeting point or a collection point is new to me. I haven't heard that. That's interesting. Certainly is logical and reasonable. I do know that there were in the Chicago area at least, and in St. Paul as well. There were some known bars that were. I guess it would be the would be almost like a bulletin board of gangsters, where the gangsters would check in as to who's where, and they communicated that way. But yeah, I guess pharmacies could be just as logical. I just have never heard that before.
No, yeah, I've not heard of that one either.
It's a good
That'd
place.
be kind of weird because they don't stay open late at night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think something would have to be open later.
Now, if it was a pharmacy that had kind of like one of these quote unquote doctors that they use to patch themselves up with or get, medication.
Exactly. And there's no doubt that in the underworld, they knew doctors that they could use because I know that from the FBI file because Dillinger was shot. He was shot in St. Paul. He was shot. When was the other time, Travis? I'm forgetting. But in Mason City,
Chicago.
Iowa.
Yeah, Mason City.
Chicago leaving the theater.
Well, yeah. But
in about 27 minutes.
Okay. In Mason City, Iowa, and in St. Paul, both times, he visited an underworld doctor. So with Amy's investigation, that's a pharmacy that would make logical sense.
Yeah.
That would be that they would know these doctors that would treat them and not report it to the police.
Well, I'd like to, when we get into the address book, if any of this kind of coincides with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
And actually, I want to say maybe, Joe, it's another email of Amy's that you had passed along where she suggested, looking at when we go through the address book,
yes,
which we haven't done specifically because we were kind of holding that for TV to have, an organic investigation into it. But, since we're going to delve into it, Amy brought up the point of looking at the old city directories, which city directories, it's like a phone book, but it's also, you can cross-reference an address, versus a name or a phone number. So you can look it up various ways. So if we see an address, in the book, but maybe not necessarily a name associated with it, we can go to the 1934 city directory of whatever town we're looking for. And those old city directories are usually in the local libraries. And we can look up that address and it'll tell you who was living there at the time. And usually in those days, it also included their occupation. So, that could be some great lead value when we actually hit the road with this.
And us,
Definitely.
and this is what we're talking about with people being involved with us. Who
Absolutely.
would have
Yep.
known a pharmacy could be a possible lead for a gang hangout? I didn't know that.
Absolutely. Yep.
So now we could see, guy who lives on First Street was a pharmacist. Okay.
Yeah,
Like that's kind
exactly.
of, we're kind of like looking for that. So that's awesome. Amy, so far you're, 10 out of 10 here on your questions.
And as far as Amy asking what whiskey drank and
Yeah,
Dillinger
yeah.
drank, I'm having a little whiskey myself tonight.
Yeah.
Hell, we might have to have shots for him.
And when we went through the trash pile at we didn't know what it was, but we were surmising that it was the trash pile at the Dillinger farm. When we started digging into that, we found several bottles that, a couple of them most certainly probably could have been a whiskey bottle, but any labels or that kind of thing is long gone. But so the short answer is we don't know specifically maybe what brand that John Dillinger liked.
Yeah,
Brown
because
liquor.
I'm not because I've never heard it passed down what he really drank or didn't drink.
Yeah.
I'm looking up popular what was whiskey 1934. Let's see what comes up. I don't even know. But Golden Hills, rare vintage, straight bourbon whiskey. And hell, he could have been drinking, the stuff from Tennessee. He probably just went down, picked it
Yeah.
up anyway in
Exactly.
Bardstown.
Well, by 1934, prohibition had stopped, but I guarantee you there were still a lot of people that lived out in the country that were still making their own moonshine. So,
And that stuff will knock you on your ass, right?
Yeah.
So we don't know that. Ended up in Lexington. What's the significance to Lexington, do you think?
I'm not sure about that. I don't know of any specific connections of anybody in the Dillinger gang that was from Lexington. But again, I do recall from the FBI file that there were numerous sightings of Dillinger in Kentucky, and I want to say Lexington as well. But um, I'm stretching the old memory to do that. But without a doubt, in Kentucky.
Yeah.
How about this one? I love this part. So we talked to Amy when Travis and I talked to Amy on the phone. I called Travis right away. I patched him in. I was like, "Hey, we have a fan. She's asking questions about the old gold pocket watch that John had." And I said, she asked me, "Was there a gold pocket watch that Dillinger had?" And I said, "I don't know. I'll call Travis." And so Travis picks up, and I'm like, "Travis, did he have an old gold watch?" And he's like, "Yeah, he did." And so what did we tell her? Because she's asking about this pocket watch that was stolen from her
Yes.
grandfather.
I'm actually, hold on, I just remembered.
Jogged your memory.
I'm going to see if I have a photo of it. Because I
Okay.
probably do.
So
I'm
one of the things we liked about that question was it's just kind of funny because it all of a sudden puts into perspective, shit, a lot of this stuff could not be John's. You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of the stuff in Travis, it may, be owned by, have in possession by John, but he stole it.
Yeah.
And I think, Stuart, you mentioned before that Dillinger did attend the World's Fair in Chicago.
Yeah, absolutely. Amy references the World's Fair. It was in Chicago, at least I know, and I don't know the exact times, but I know it started in 1932, and because Dillinger would have been in jail, he got out of jail in May of 33. He and a girlfriend, Mary Longacre, went to the Chicago World's Fair, and Dillinger, as a joke, had a cop take a picture of he and Mary. And so we know that Dillinger was at the Chicago World's Fair. So Amy's right on that one as well.
Good. Travis, is it behind you?
So that is John's hunting suit and 2 of the shotguns and an automatic that was his. That pocket watch is the one that was on the supposed body in Chicago when he died.
And that pocket watch you don't have anymore.
No, we don't have any of those artifacts right there. That's the hunting suit that he had at Little Bohemia that the FBI sent back to the family. Wow. But yeah, so that pocket watch there, the back would open up and you could put a picture inside of it.
So one of the things that Amy said to us, Todd and Stuart, was that it had a picture or an engraving. I got the impression it was an engraving of of like a log cabin or a home, a log home,
Mm-hmm.
and that was her grandfather's log home, and he was so excited to have this gold watch, and then he goes to the World's Fair and he gets it stolen by the Dillinger gang. Could that be the watch that her family, was her grandfather's? Which is kind of crazy to think about.
I tell you what, I wouldn't rule it out. I would not.
Yeah.
But this is the kind of stuff that's popping up when everyone's listening. We love these stories. Give us more of this. Like,
yep, I love it.
Connecting him in a bar. It gives us character details. It gives us movement details. It just is opening up so much more. So
to me, the thing that I've found, in hearing these kind of stories and learning this stuff along the way of this odyssey that I've been on Dillinger is it really, to me, brings history to life. It just, because you actually realize, we're talking about real human beings here that lived life and, had ups and downs and, needed a watch and stole a watch. And, all those little things to me just bring it to life. And it's fascinating.
It's like Travis always said, this is history making.
Yeah.
Yes.
History breaking.
Yeah.
History breaking. Yeah.
Yeah. This is great. How about the next one? You guys ready to tackle another one?
Hit us. Bring it on.
Okay.
Bring it on.
This one I won't share because it's shorter. But Ryan W. from Indianapolis says, loving the project podcast. Pod talks a lot about the FBI had a report from the doctors that Dillinger had plastic surgery, but was that even verified by friends or family or in pictures that it actually occurred? So we covered this a little bit, but that's a good question. I think
yes, it did actually happen. Yes.
Yeah.
It's actually very thoroughly documented in the FBI file. They interviewed the two doctors, and I use that term loosely because they were basically alcoholic criminals who, at one time, I think had a medical degree from maybe the prison medical school. But they did interview those guys. They very in detail, described the procedure. And it sounded like it would have been painful, gruesome, and basically ineffective, because when you see the picture of Dillinger in the morgue, actually, there are a couple of photos where the resolution of the photograph is really pretty good for 1934, and you can actually see some of the scars from the plastic surgery on his face. I think there was a slight facelift, and some moles were removed and stuff, but you can definitely see the one scar about it. So, and also the fingerprints were obliterated.
Yes.
in probably what is the way it was just is written in the report sounds just like torture to me. He had like the tips of his fingers were cut open, and then in the cuts, acid was poured. It just had to be brutally painful.
He must have been drinking a lot of whiskey.
He had some old granddad going there, or whatever that was. You mentioned, Joe.
Then related to Amy's question about the pharmacies, because they might have been getting narcotics and stuff like that from pharmacies to help with the pain.
Yep.
And
that completely makes sense. Well, and they in those days they for an anesthetic they gave ether, and I'm not exactly sure what ether is, but it either puts you out or definitely puts you in la la land. And apparently the doctor that applied the ether to Dillinger damn near killed him, because Dillinger apparently started swallowing his tongue and had some kind of a seizure that they were actually able to bring him back from. But these guys were not the cream of the crop as far as on the doctor mountain.
Well, there you go. I mean, we covered it slightly, but hey, and honestly, maybe we haven't, now that I'm thinking about it, because we're releasing this before the next one. So
anyway. Actually, we do talk about this in detail in another episode.
Yeah. This is good though. This is good. Okay, cool.
Joe, what was the comment? The commenter's name? What was his name?
Ryan.
Oh, Ryan.
Ryan. Okay.
W.
So Ryan just hasn't had the benefit of the other one where we go into detail on this one. But that's a great question. Great observation.
Yes, and thanks for reaching out.
Yeah.
All right. So we got another one. Anthony V. from Long Beach, California. He wrote us and he said, Just wondering if you guys have given any thought to reviewing Ron Offen's papers from Dillinger, Dead or Alive, which he co-authored. I would think that an experienced investigator like Stuart Fillmore could possibly find some interesting nuggets among the papers. I live in Southern California and unfortunately never realized that Ron Offen lived in Newport Beach, a real missed opportunity. I emailed him once and he was kind enough to respond. Hopefully, one of you guys can make it to the University of Chicago, to the library. Ron Offen was originally an insurance investigator, so he likely was responsible for a lot of research. Your podcast is great and looking forward to it every week. Another suggestion is pursuing who the person claiming to be Dillinger in 1959 and 1963 is. He's obviously dead, but there might be someone who's a relative, neighbor, acquaintance that could offer some info, and a long shot, but certainly worth pursuing. Ron Offen, in his email, did state that an ad was taken out in the LA Times to try to determine the identity of the person. Perhaps a copy of the ad could be included in his papers. Wow. This, again, Anthony V. Tony V from Long Beach, California.
Tony.
I told Tony, I said, well, I just call him Tony there. I told Anthony, I said, well, you're close enough in California. Why don't you start doing research and start asking?
Man. Yeah, you're closer than we are. We're the Texas crime travelers, but hey, man, there's a limit, you know.
Yeah. Limits Texas.
So I have to actually, Ron Offen co-authored really the original. I guess he, along with his co-author J. Robert Nash, are the original gangsters on this. That first brought this question up, because I think the book was called Dillinger, Dead or Alive.
Yes.
Yeah, and I have that book. J. Robert Nash actually then wrote a second book a few years later. I think without Ron Offen, but the original book was by Offen and Nash. It raised these questions, and because Nash had somehow gotten a hold of the autopsy, which the Dillinger autopsy was missing for many, many years. I'm not exactly sure how.
I've never heard that before.
Say that again.
Okay, so the Dillinger autopsy, the autopsy report, rather.
Yeah, that we've looked at.
Right? Yes, was missing for many, many years. Now, I'm not. He got his hands either on the original copy, or the original report, or certainly a first generation copy of it. And that, I think that's really what got the ball rolling for him for his book. And so, he talks about the eye color. I think the body, the weight of the body was drastically different. There were several things, and so in the stuff that Nash and Offen pointed out, I certainly attributed, in the report that I wrote up, that they did not find the discrepancy in the ears that I found so compelling. But without a doubt, I would love to see Ron Offen's papers on that, because I actually have talked to Nash myself, trying to see if he had any original source documentation that could maybe shine some light on what that map was.
Is Nash still alive?
Yes, he is. Yeah. Well, this is back in 2018 when I talked to him. And I don't want to say he's in his maybe upper 80s. But at that time he was
president.
At that time he was super sharp. But he just didn't. And what my main focus was, if he had any thoughts or opinions on what this map was that we found at the Dillinger farm, and maybe any original source documentation that might shed some light on that. At the time, he really didn't have anything that he thought could help, and he didn't remember anything in their research, but he also didn't rule it out. So maybe there is something in Ron Offen's papers that would be fantastic to see.
It's J. Robert Nash, right?
Yes.
Died April 22nd, 2024.
Oh, okay. I did not know that. Okay.
Dang.
Okay.
And he was born in Indianapolis.
Yeah. I think he was a newspaper guy. So
I'd like to, maybe Travis and I can reach out to the family to see if there's any documents that would be available for us to kind of help our research. We're continuing his legacy. I mean, think about it, guys. We've been doing this since April.
Yeah. He was fairly reclusive, and I actually apply using maybe a couple of the skills I learned along the way. He was really impressed that I found him. So so but we had several conversations about this topic, and I know he still was very much a believer that it was an imposter that was killed.
I love this. Travis, you and I, we're gonna go to Chicago. That's an easy run. I mean, I was in South Bend today, so
yeah. I'm just saying.
Yeah, you guys got to get up there and check this out. I didn't realize that was available. That's a great resource.
Don't worry, we'll do the traveling, guys. You guys just stay in Texas, okay?
But my relatives usually don't do good in Chicago. I'm just saying.
And you know what's funny, guys? We were joking around that the podcast is going to end, like the timer on our podcast is going to end on the exact time. It is. It literally is going to end on the exact time.
Of course.
What do you guys think? Let's go. I like Matthew T. I want to read this one, okay?
Go ahead.
Hello. So ever since the episode of Expedition Unknown was shown in Canada about the map found buried on the family farm, I've been mentally paralyzed by something I saw on the map.
Oh, okay.
Wow, that's intriguing. Okay.
Pause for dramatic effect. Perhaps it's just my imagination, but did it not seem to indicate that John traveled as far north as my hometown of Winnipeg, Manitoba?
Yes,
would it be possible for you to
Yes.
verify for me so I can stop losing sleep over this? I swear the map shows a circuit up north to Manitoba. Anyways, great podcast. Appreciate learning more about John Dillinger as the show progresses. In the future, maybe you guys could take interest in the international pre-world criminal John/Jack Kravchenko. He allegedly was behind robberies in North Dakota, Minnesota, New York, and overseas in Milan, Italy. He has quite the story mythos to him, and I'm closely associated with this family. So again, history, families connecting here, crime,
That's
families connecting. But there you go. So the question is Manitoba, Winnipeg.
Okay,
Manitoba.
so I'm looking at it as we speak. It goes, yes, it's the map has a line or a route, whatever you want to call it, because we don't really think this is a route. But anyway, there is a line and a star in Winnipeg, Canada, and it's marked July 19th. So we don't know. We assume that's 1934.
Yeah.
So
I'm starting to feel like this is more and more like a plan that he had, because I mean July 19th, he's
we know
3 days from being dead in Chicago, and he was probably in Chicago at the time.
Yes,
of July 19th.
Well, when this map was done, we know it was in April of 34.
Right.
So yeah.
Maybe it was.
So he's absolutely correct. It goes all the way to Winnipeg. It's difficult to get this entire map into one picture that is clear and has good detail. But absolutely, he's correct. It goes up to Winnipeg, and from Winnipeg, it goes out to Great Falls, Montana. So it makes like a kind of a big. There are 2 or 3 points on the map where it looks like it's an arrow pointing at something.
I still think the map was sitting on a table, and several people were looking at it, and then somebody's drawing on it, and so I think that's why those paths are kind of as if we're going to say, hey, we're going to be here, and then we're going to go up here on this date.
Exactly.
How easy, real quick, how easy was it to get over the border in 1934?
I mean, I don't know.
Drive over?
I would bet. Yeah, I can't say for sure, but I'm betting it was probably nothing to it.
Yeah,
I was gonna say so like today.
Google when passports were created. Google that when passports started.
Okay, Todd, who's the host of the show? You start doing it. What am I googling? Right, what am I googling?
Mr. Google.
When were
passports first established or used?
You boomers.
Go out there on the world.
History of a passport, circa 1900? No, wait. Brief history.
1920.
1920.
But, for driving across the border in 1934, I'm betting that if they even stopped you, all you had to do is say, hey, I'm going into Winnipeg for
Hockey game.
A hockey game, exactly.
Sure. The hockey game. I love it. Yeah.
Well, maybe Matthew can research to see if something was happening on July 19th.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of that
yeah,
year.
what would have been going on in Winnipeg?
What would have been going on up there?
Yeah.
The money train was coming through there.
Yeah.
Or around April of 1934, because that's when the map would have been created.
That's true. Yep.
True. You
Matthew,
don't
you
think
have
they would
homework.
know? They would know events. Maybe they did know events or got leads on events.
Yep.
Yeah.
And well said, Todd. That's homework for Matthew. We need all our friends in all these places to do to help us out with this.
Yeah.
I got one more, and then we can keep going. This one is from the Gorby brothers. Okay? The Gorby brothers. Luke,
Gorbies.
Zach, and Ryan. Okay?
Okay.
That's what they
All
wanted to
right.
be called, the Gorby brothers. Hi, guys. Podcast is growing great. I was wondering if I can get the Fillmore report. So, of course, I sent it to him. My brothers Luke, Zach, and myself have been fans of John for a long time. We have questions like you do. One question my brother Luke has is to Stuart. He wanted to ask if the FBI did shoot the wrong guy that night. Would they make some kind of deal with John Dillinger, or would that be crazy to ask the FBI at the time? My question is also about if you guys will talk about the lookalikes John had. I saw 3 different names: Alf Alsman, Frank D. Carpenter, and Frederick A. Weber. Thanks from Ryan, Luke, and Zach, the Gorby brothers. I feel like they're their own
All
gang.
right.
I mean, I like. So, as far as I think, what he's asking is, was there some kind of a deal made out?
Yeah.
Okay. So one theory that, and this is not my original thought, and it might have been yours, Travis. I know it's something that we've talked about along the way. Was it possible that that maybe Dillinger was I'm dropping the word, a protected witness? No, a protected witness. Witness protection.
There you go.
Was Dillinger in the witness protection program before there was officially such a thing? And because that's not too outrageous of a thought, because once Dillinger was killed, the rest of the gang was run down and killed pretty quickly. So if, let's say, Dillinger did cooperate and whatever deal was worked out, was it something where then he turned on and gave information on where everybody else was, because they ran him down pretty quickly? Like I said, that's not my original thought, but it's certainly a consideration. And
The second question was about lookalikes. Those 3 names: Ralph Alsman, Frank Carpenter, and Frederick Weber.
Yeah, the Ralph guy was arrested. I don't even know how many times, because he looks so much like Dillinger. If you see a picture of him, he's there is a resemblance, and so without a doubt there were lookalikes. In fact, we mentioned the Ron Offen, J. Robert Nash book, Dillinger, Dead or Alive. There's actually a picture in there of a guy that is supposedly Jimmy Lawrence, who was the name that Dillinger was giving when he was living with Anna Sage just before the Biograph incident. And the guy does have maybe somewhat of a resemblance to Dillinger. So without a doubt there were lookalikes. Some of them, in the case of that Ralph guy, being so close that he was arrested a number of times.
Here's one of the pictures of Ralph.
And Stuart just mentioned the Biograph incident, and again, we're coming up on he
really does
the hour.
Yeah.
It's really weird, dude.
It is really weird. Yeah, we're 1 minute away from exactly the moment he was shot and killed, allegedly.
So right now, Melvin Purvis is lighting a cigar, and Charles Winstead is pulling out his .45 automatic.
So, with that said, we understand where we're at, and we'll wait till it actually turns 11:30 here for us. But I think one of the main questions we're getting a lot is, why are you glorifying this? And we're really, I think we're after the truth and justice of something that maybe didn't happen, because today it wouldn't have happened like that. So There's a lot of questions. We're just looking for the truth, and it's
That's
fun.
it.
It's
Yes.
fun. It's a puzzle. So,
Yep.
11:30, guys. I wouldn't have been more. Couldn't have picked a better crew to be with.
Yep.
Keep digging.
Keep
Yep.
digging, guys. We'll
Keep
be back.
digging.